It is time for another Zerg vs Zerg live game, and what I got for you today is a match played on Odyssey Alley that I am playing at the exact same time as I'm also giving commentary to it. Now this is going to be a Zerg vs Zerg. I've been cheesing quite a bit in the matchup. I recently uploaded a video, I'll link that down below in the description of the video, where I go over the 15-14-14 build that I've been executing a lot, and it's been winning me a lot of games. But of course, it is a bad idea to focus on only cheese whenever you play Zerg vs Zerg, or any matchup for that matter, just because you're gonna be left over with a pretty terrible matchup if people start randomly countering the build that you've planned so many times to do before. So in this particular one, I'm gonna go ahead and open up with a hatchery into a gas geyser into a spawning pool. A little bit aggressive in that sense, that if my opponent is gonna be cheesing me, I'm gonna be in quite a bit of trouble, but nothing all too terrible. But go ahead and get the 16 gas geyser here as a follow-up, make one more drone, and then put down the spawning pool as well. So reasonably safe right there. Sometimes you go up to like 18, 18, 18 for putting down all of these buildings. I'm going 17, 16, 16 here, which is a little bit of like a safer variant to make sure that I don't get caught off guard if my opponent is indeed cheesing me early on with Zerglings. Now let's be honest, this is indeed Zerg vs Zerg. Probably one of the most cheesy matchups in all of StarCraft 2, just because in particular, like for example 13 gas, 12 spawning pool, or 13-13, or indeed 15-14-14. I've seen it a lot more on the ladder since I made that video, which is pretty cool. Regardless though, there are indeed a lot of like super aggressive build orders that are totally viable and can indeed transition towards either straight up victories or long drawn out macro games. So we'll have to figure out what we want to do. Now, standard, quote-unquote, standard Zerg vs Zerg games mostly come down right now to Roach timings, into sometimes a switch with Mutalisk as well. It kind of depends on the situation. Of course, after the Link Baneling shenanigans goes down, though, it doesn't mean that we have to micro our ass off here in the earlier stage of the game, and I do plan on getting at least a little bit aggressive early on as well, when my first set of larvae pop off. Looks like my opponent, however, is not cheesing me in this particular match. I'll go ahead and create my second set of Zerglings here as well. Those can just simply hang out in the natural. I put down my Baneling nest here at the front just because it's a pretty good, nice, beefy building, I suppose. And if I end up losing that building anyway, the game is practically over too. And, you know, it's a nice little bit of shielding. Can provide a little bit of cover for my queen as well, a little bit of surface area reduction. There are two sets, or two Zerglings right now moving across the map too for my opponent. I'm already looking to start taking a third base, judging indeed that my opponent has made an expansion right there on the low ground. Want to try and get the third out before he can potentially snipe the drone here. He's actually sending his overlord a little bit too far forward. And I'll go ahead and put down that third base. That is a little greedy by me, but it should work out just fine. So he's trying his very best here to do whatever he can to prevent that overlord from falling. For some reason, this one's magically managed to slip past the cracks. I want to have a quick peek. Okay, have seen enough. There's not going to be an Evo chamber down for my opponent, which is huge. But now that the first larva have popped off, I do want to make at least a couple of links just in case. Are you an overlord? Alright, no, it's not. But it's okay. We can still do some scouting here. Now, we've already got a pretty reasonable amount of saturation, which is a little bit scary. I'm saving up right now to make sure that my opponent, you know, if he's cheesing me, I don't really want to be caught with my pants down, or if he's like rushing with a lot of links. I've made drones just now. Yeah, there is also a third base for him, so that's great. I'll go ahead and put down my lair here, as well as an Evo chamber, as well as a Roach warren here at the front. We'll make a round of links now as well. But we actually got a very solid amount of economy here already. So he is indeed forced to make some links on his end of the map, not all too many. Just make sure here that, or just trying to make sure here that I get the superior economy over my opponent. I want him to stop droning as much as possible, so if I can slow him down in any way, shape, or form, that's great. He's actually moving across the map right now with a lot more units. So I'm forced to morphing some Banes. Okay, so far so good. Got a really nice economy here. Gotta just buy some time. There are already a lot of Banes out for me. Now my opponent has decided to get rather aggressive. I may end up losing this base. Ooh, that was huge. That was a big detonation there. Now I may still end up losing this base because he's going balls to the wall to try and do some damage here. It does get a little bit finicky to try and defend it, but of course I'll try and hold on here. Lair's done. Getting my Roach beat. Base is still alive. Very good. This is the point where I'm starting to feel I'm trying to squeeze out a couple of units. He's actually running across here. He's trying to bypass me. I think he may have sent some units towards this base. I'll just try and be safe here. There's no real reason here for me to get this aggressive. Now, this is one of the new maps. I'm still trying to figure out what the ideal spots for overlords are. As you may have noticed already, though, I am a little bit blind. Definitely could have been much stronger when it comes to that placement right there. I'll be able to shoo away that overlord of his, though, at my third base once this queen pops out. And I'm going to start making non-stop roaches right now. The idea behind the roaches is that I can do a really nice timing attack right when +1 finishes, as well as the roach speed upgrade. They finish up roughly around the same time if you get them in this order. Still getting my units out though. Gotta be careful here of run-bys, leaving the Banes at the third. Okay. Did end up losing the queen, but that's nothing too terrifying. As long as I'm not really losing at too much or all too much economy, I'm pretty happy with this situation. Okay. There's not a queen over there, of course. I'll go ahead and queue up a new one. We'll get +2 attack here as well. Roach speed is just about to finish, so we'll move across the map. I'll reinforce with a whole lot of Zerglings as well. Once I can, that is. We'll go ahead and get a couple of Ravagers here, too. Try and see whatever damage we can do here at his third base. He actually already made a lot of workers here. We need to do damage. If we do not, we're in trouble. Now, I am taking out a lot of his workers already. I'm also starting to squeeze out a few of my own drones now, which is great. And it looks like if we can intercept units like that, right, which we are indeed doing, we can pick up these roaches quite easily and keep on the pressure. I'm already droning up again. And actually, my opponent just simply decides to GG out, so I'll give him the GG back. And that way, we obtain some sweet, sweet ladder points. Alrighty, so here we are in the replay. Now, I quickly want to go over what I think went really well in this game and what I think I should be improving on. So, Zerg vs. Zerg, with the new season, right? It's been going very, very, very well. I currently got like 85-ish% win rate in Zerg vs. Zerg, which is probably my personal highest win rate of any matchup ever. Is definitely my strongest matchup right now, and I'm feeling really confident. I've been going for a wide variety of build orders, and I think that the main thing that has been changing up my win rate is first off that 15-14-14 build that I've been really enjoying a lot of. Sometimes you transition to macro games, oftentimes you can just straight up win up the game. But of course, I've not been going for that build exclusively. I've been going for a lot of games like this one right here as well. And by the way, for anyone wondering, this is, you know, what the average, like, I would say, like, high master to low grandmaster Zerg vs. Zerg match will look like, because it is very easy to mess up, right? One little mistake and you will either run all of your Zerglings into a Baneling, or, you know, one little mistake you make a bit too many drones and you can just straight up end up losing. Zerg vs. Zerg is very much so like a game of drones, and in the game of drones you win or you die, right? That's a quote from Cersei Lannister. It's not, but like, it's very much so a decision on whether or not you want to make workers or you want to make units. Now, besides making drones at the correct timings, right, it's also important that you set yourself up for a powerful timing attack. So what I want to talk about right here is primarily the switch towards lair. So initially here, early on into the game, we both go for quick third bases. My opponent sends down a drone, my third base is already down. But all things considered, it's pretty similar and we don't really make all too many differences. Now at this point, we notice my opponent is making a lot of Zerglings, right? At this point, I'm still squeezing out mostly drones myself, and I actually did so for a little while. Now notice right here, it's 33 versus 26 Harvesters. This is huge. Like, it may not sound like a very big difference, but when you think about it, I mean, I'm not gonna do math. I've tried doing math while recording videos in the past, bad idea. But percentually speaking, right, I'm getting a substantial amount of additional income compared to my opponent. For every minute that goes by, I get quite a lot more resources, and it adds up very, very quickly. Because notice, if my opponent is committed to aggression right now, he's not using these Zerglings defensively, I'm gonna be in a very good spot as long as I manage to not get overrun by these links. So I felt like my defense was very solid. Now, I ended up losing quite a lot here on the HP count, I suppose, on these on this hatchery, and maybe with some better micro on my opponent's end, he would have been able to kill it. But even if he would have killed it, I would have still set myself up for this timing right here. And this timing attack is the one that I basically ended up winning the game with. So the timing we're going for right now is going to be a +1 attack Roach speed timing, probably the oldest timing attack in the book. Now, what is important to keep in mind here is the timing of the lair. So if you back up into the game just a little bit, you can see that I have not quite started my lair at this point just yet. When it comes to starting up your lair in ZVZ, it's very important that you start it up when you got a reasonable saturation in the natural. Now, what is reasonable? Ideally, you get yourself the, full saturation on minerals, full saturation on the gas, and that's when you start up the lair. However, in Zerg vs. Zerg, sometimes you have to take a bit of a gamble, and it's a good idea to start it up a little bit earlier than that. However, you don't want to start it up too soon. I see a lot of Zerg players, in particular the ones that I coach, that start up their lair when they've, for example, got like full saturation in the main with a single gas guy, so like I've got right here. But then also like 5 workers or so in the natural. That is not enough. You need to get a little bit more than that. You need to get at least, I would say, 12, 13, 14, 15 workers out on minerals here before you can properly make that decision. So when I'm putting up the lair here, I'm also putting up a couple of other buildings, right? So when I put up the lair, I put up first a big round of drones. I put up the lair. I go for the gas, I go for the Evo chamber, I go for the Roach Warren. Now notice right here the building positioning as well. Pretty important part. I want to make sure that my queen can sit in that little gap in case my opponent gets really aggressive. And, I can basically sort of like funnel the Zerglings in rather than my queen being under a lot of threat right away. I'm also reducing a lot of the service area. Say, for example, Zerglings try and surround this queen. The wall right there with the Roach Warren as well as the Baneling Nest significantly reduces the service area there on that queen. So I have, a much easier time to hold on. Now, normally you could be in a lot of trouble here, right? So my opponent is making 26 Zerglings. I've got 6 more drones on the production tab. I'm already ahead when it comes to workers. Plus I'm teching up and I'm getting a whole bunch of additional buildings. You can be in a lot of trouble there, right? That is why Overlord position is such an important part as well. Since it is the game of drones, I want to make sure that I'm trying to keep those drones alive as well. So these Overlords right here, they will scout out exactly what's going on. The Zerglings will spot the amount of links that he has, and I just start making non-stop Zerglings here myself for a little while. Now, I am still trying to squeeze in a couple of drones. That's just me being greedy. I probably, in retrospect, should have not done that. I should have been a little bit more decisive there in my drone timing. And once again, while I probably could have lost this hatchery with some better micro, I'm just trying to buy time here for my reinforcements to come out. Once again, knowing that I've got the superior economy here, so the longer I wait, the more units I can get out. Now, I did get a nice detonation there against a group of the Zerglings. Nothing too incredible, but as long as I keep that hatchery alive, life is gonna be pretty solid. There we have it. So at this point, I started up +1 missile as soon as I could, and I also started up the Glio Reconstitution, which is the roach speed, right when the lair finished up. At this point, I start making non-stop drones here, or non-stop roaches rather. I'm starting up a lot of army. I'm basically trying to make sure here that I do as much damage as I can. Now, of course, this is also the moment, since my opponent knows he needs to catch up on drones, this is also the moment where he starts making a lot of his workers again. So we get this weird, like, mango of builds, I suppose, right? So he tries to go for a run-by, he kills a queen, all that shenanigans, but all the while, I'm looking pretty solid when it comes to the worker count. Now, at this point, he's finally evened up the worker count as it is, but I think for about a good minute and a half or so, I was about 7 to 8 drones ahead, right? Now, say I was about 8 drones ahead for about a minute. That would mean that I get about 8 additional minerals per second, since a drone mines for about 1 mineral a second, a little bit less than that, but just for, the math, I suppose, a little easier. In that minute or so that goes by, I obtained about 500 or so additional resources that my opponent did not have. Plus, I did not end up taking any losses here whatsoever. I mean, I lost a couple of Zerglings. I may have lost a queen in the process, but I didn't really lose any of the drones. That means that I can use that advantage there to squeeze out like an additional 6 to 7 to 8 or so roaches that my opponent will not be able to afford. Right? Now, of course, it's not that black and white, and there's a lot of micro involved, and there's a lot more factors at play, but just from like a straight up like Game of Thrones kind of perspective, right? That is basically what ended up happening here. My opponent is desperately trying to catch up in the amount of workers that he has. He had to do so by just simply over-droning, and at that point, we just simply had an additional amount of workers there that my opponent could not deal with, and we just simply overpower all of the units that he's got. On top of that, we were actually ahead when it comes to tech. Another advantage right there that we had was +1 attack, and that just simply makes roaches so much more powerful, and eventually, we ended up obtaining the victory. So there's quite a lot going on, right? Besides, like, a lot of people don't like Zerg vs. Zerg for some reason. There's quite a lot of, like, thought processes going on, I guess, when you're playing ZVZ. You gotta make sure that you're on top of the amount of drones that you got. You gotta make sure that you have your overlords in proper positions. I definitely need work on that. I mean, my overlord position in this match was absolutely atrocious. If we go back just a minute or so, you can see here that I'm desperately trying to put my overlords in better places. But you can see here, I have got no vision here of the middle area whatsoever anymore. I didn't have vision of his third base until my Zerglings managed to get over there. I've got no vision over on this high ground, no overlords in the middle. You don't need to spread every single one of them, but I definitely should have spread the ones that I do have a lot more efficiently. I think that would make the matchup way easier for me as well. Other than that, I think I should not have been so greedy, adding on a couple of drones when I should have just been making non-stop Zerglings when I saw the handful of his at the third base. I should have had a better vision of that. Like, the reason why I squeezed out a couple more workers, right, when I saw the initial, like, 10 or so right here at his third, was because I had no idea that his opponent, or that my opponent, rather, was still adding on additional ones. If I would have had an Overlord up here, if I would have had an Overlord right here, if I would have had an Overlord right over here, I would have been able to see these links much sooner, and I would have never risked adding on additional drones there. So I would say the Overlord vision right here is the big point that I should try and work on. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed watching this nerdy Zerg vs. Zerg. I went way off track there, talking about this like it was the, you know, like my thesis or whatever. I was trying to get my PhD from this game right here. Regardless though, I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. If you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you in the next one.